Our readings today provide a marvelous picture of the transformation of Peter and the disciples that resulted from the resurrection of Jesus. Often we may imagine that the story of Easter is only about what happened to Jesus, which is miraculous all on its own. But equally miraculous is the way in which the Easter event transformed the lives of the first disciples and continues to transform our lives today. Easter is not merely an event of long ago. It is also an ongoing manifestation of God's grace in your life and in mine. And today's readings give us a glimpse of how that manifestation and transformation continues to occur. Our first reading from the Acts of the Apostles gives us an idea of the results of the Easter transformation on Peter and the apostles. We see them after they have incorporated the resurrection into their lives and after they have found their voice. Indeed, we see them at a point in their lives when they simply cannot stop talking about Jesus, despite the efforts of those who command them to be quiet. The testimony of the disciples mirrors the voices of the many angels that John speaks of in our second reading from Revelations. Can you imagine how the world might be transformed if you and I were as brave and as forthright in proclaiming the message of Jesus as the early disciples? Of course, the disciples weren't always that courageous. So it might be helpful to take a closer look at our gospel reading, since it provides a window into the beginning of the Easter transformation of Peter. Our reading from John shows that Peter was a man of few words, a man who recognized that he only occasionally knew what to say, a man still burdened by the guilt of his denial of Jesus, and a man still uncertain about what had happened to his friend Jesus. But Jesus re-enters his life gently, as Jesus always does. And Jesus accepts Peter's hesitancy, his guilt, and his doubt. Much as he did before his passion and death, Jesus begins by attending to the needs of others. In this instance, he points the fishermen to where the fish are biting, and he makes them breakfast. It is hard to imagine anything more simple, more direct. Jesus continuing to feed and to nurture his disciples. It's the kind of image that anyone should revel in. It's the kind of image that one might like to see in a painting, for example. And so if you have some time, either during or after Mass, I encourage you to reflect on the painting of this scene, because it's an important one, not just for how Jesus reaches out to Peter, but how he reaches out to you and me. Jesus meets Peter's guilt and his sense of worthlessness head on by allowing Peter to undo his threefold denial with a threefold profession of love and friendship. Before his passion and death, whenever Jesus healed, he also forgave. Following his resurrection, Jesus continues to forgive. As Pope Francis has said, Jesus never tires of forgiving. Jesus never tires of forgiving. But interestingly, the forgiveness that Jesus offers doesn't come with a stiff price. Jesus doesn't expect perfection from those he forgives. He meets people where they are and encourages them to move on from there. Scripture scholars note an interesting facet of the dialogue between Jesus and Peter that is lost in English translations. In English, we have so few words for love. In fact, we have one. It's love. The Greeks had many words for love. In the Greek versions of this exchange, Jesus asked Peter twice if he has agapeo. Agapeo. It's a kind of love that pours itself out for others. It's the kind of love that would be necessary if Jesus asked you to feed his sheep without distinction, without playing favorites. It's the kind of love Jesus had when he died for all of us. But Peter responds that he feels phileo. Phileo. Think of Philadelphia. It's a kind of deep love that is shared by close friends or brothers, the kind of affection you would have for your BFF. In other words, Peter is honestly stating that he may not have what Jesus is asking for. Peter is indicating that while he loves Jesus like a brother, he may not have the kind of love that Jesus had for his followers and for you and me. Peter is admitting that he is not at a point where he can honestly say that he loves everyone, but he does love Jesus. Ever merciful Jesus hears this, and the third time Jesus poses the question, he asks Peter if he experiences not agapeo, but phileo. Jesus asked if Peter loves him like a brother, to which Peter honestly says, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Peter is acknowledging that Jesus knows him better than he knows himself, with all his limitations and imperfections. And Jesus is implicitly saying to Peter, I can work with you. At this moment, I just need you to be exactly who you are. Loving everyone may come later. For now, I just need you to love me, to love Jesus. And Jesus transformed Peter. He transforms you and me. I am sure that Jesus hopes that each of us will one day have the kind of love that can embrace everyone, even our enemies. But this day, as with Peter, Jesus is asking you and me to simply love him, Jesus, as a brother. If you are willing to do just that, Jesus will work to transform us. Jesus cares for us. He forgives us, and he meets us wherever we are. And that is the place where all transformation begins, by a willingness to follow Jesus.